My name is Rich Lambert, and I'm the creative director on Elder Scrolls Online.
So you had a huge, just a plethora of information a few weeks ago about, your Gates of Oblivion. But I first want to talk about this new dungeon you're adding to try to promo the new DLC. You can talk about the new dungeon people can explore in the game.
Sure. So there's two. One is called Blackdrake Villa, and the other is called the Cauldron. And they are essentially they help set some context and some backstory for the events that are going to take place in the year-long storyline. In one of the dungeons, you meet Evely Sharp Arrow, and she is one of your guides throughout the entire year. And the other, you meet Lyrinth. Both characters are returning from base game. So it's something that our players have already kind of jumped on and been like, oh, I remember this character. I can't wait to, have some fun with it.
I mean, was when you guys were discussing whether or not what you're gonna do for your next expansion or during the pre-production process, was anyone in the team nervous? I mean, you're going back to, arguably it's 800 years before the game, but arguably one of the best Elder Scrolls games in fond memory, which is Oblivion, that and Morrowind. Like what were your thoughts when you were decided to go this route to explore 800 years in the past, the Gates of Oblivion and all these Daedric enemies?
We've definitely had some practice at it, with Morrowind and Skyrim. So, definitely a little bit nervous because, you always want to do the lore right and those games right. But like you mentioned, we're 800 years in the past. So we're not remaking that area or retelling that same story. It's our own story, and there's bits and pieces of very familiar locations scattered around in those stories, so that makes it a little bit easier. But you're right, it's Oblivion is one of the granddaddies and was one of the first games that I worked on when I came to Bethesda, so it's been kind of this full circle, if you will, for me, and it's been a lot of fun.
Has it been kind of wild seeing the tools that you had when you were working on Oblivion back on the Xbox 360 days and PC days, and seeing what you have access to now and what that opens up for you creatively?
Yeah, the technology is very, very different. Very different. And even just looking at the technology difference between when we first started working on ESO in 2007 and the tools and technology we have now in 2021, there's a lot of things we can do now that we couldn't do back then. And I think you start to see that in the types of stories we're telling, and the types of locations we're going to, and the types of systems that we've added over the years. We've been able to improve things and deliver them better and on time, which is, as a developer, all of the things you want to do for the course of your career on working on a game.
Now, given your history with Bethesda and your experience, now since you're finally going back to the Gates of Oblivion, was there anything that you wanted to originally do or had an idea for the Elder Scrolls Oblivion game that you're actually getting to put in now because, whether time or technology restrictions or anything like that?
Well, when I first started working at Bethesda, they'd kind of already figured out the story and all of those things. So for me, the thing that I was most excited about with Gates of Oblivion was focusing a little bit more on Mehrunes Dagon. He is one of my favorite Daedric princes, and being able to add to kind of who he is and what he's all about has been really awesome.
Your game is a lot different than other MMOs in the sense that it's all fully voice acted, which helps people get more involved into the story. But even with that said, I know it can be a challenge to get players to read. How do you go about trying to encourage players to follow the story and not just let's grind this out and get the gear and leave?
Well, so I think that's kind of we do have players that do that. They just click as fast as they can, and they think the game starts once you hit max level. But we really try to encourage, the journey being the experience and the part of the game. It's actually one of our core design philosophies as well, is that journey, that exploring the world and learning about the characters in the world is a huge part of what we do. And fortunately, a lot of players have adjusted their playstyles to that, and we have a huge, just straight up Elder Scrolls fandom that play ESO exactly like they would play any other Elder Scrolls game. They play it by themselves. They focus on every word in every lore book, in every single quest, and that's what the game is all about.
You guys have had this you have this year-long roadmap. Is it difficult as the creative director to try to have so much stuff going on in the year? Because usually most companies usually have like an idea of what they're going to do, like one big expansion, right? And that's their focus, but you have so many themed ones and so many additions. Like, it's got to be, I mean, to me it would be overwhelming to have this much on your plate at once, you know?
There's definitely a lot on my plate. I mean, we're already working on next year's stories. So yeah, I mean, it's part of kind of the package that we've created is, you know we do 4 major updates a year. The last couple of years we've done year-long stories. That's actually helped with the teams and making sure we're all kind of on the same page, because we're not kind of context switching and jumping all over like we used to be. Now it's okay, the team's focused on telling this year-long story. We know exactly the major beats, go, and then by the time they get to the point where we're ready to work on the next new thing, we've already kind of got those major beats kind of figured out as well, and they can just kind of roll in and start working on that. But it is a lot. I have definitely almost slipped a number of times in talking about a thing that's going to happen in the future, which would be bad. But it's just kind of part of the job.
So, like, what, obviously you guys, you do 4 major updates a year. When do you guys sit down and discuss whether you're going to add a new class or a new race to play as? Like, do those conversations come up a lot? Like, when do you
all the time?
Like, when, like, how often, I mean, how often do you guys, like, really try to implement that, but maybe it's just too much on your workload to do 4 updates and a new class and a new race?
A lot of that comes into play when we start talking about the types of stories that we want to tell. I'm a big fan of story kind of coming first. That kind of helps lay the groundwork of where they could fit location wise, and then the kind of the subsequent systems that kind of fit on top of that. A lot of people keep pestering me like, oh, we got to add a new class every year, and my response is always, no, we don't have to do anything. If it makes sense, we will. But, our big focus is, especially these last couple of updates, is, how do we, or what can we add to the game to make it feel like it's a new way to play the game? I think Antiquities is the perfect example of that. It's not more questing, it's not more killing. It's a completely new, unique, alternate activity that is focused heavily on the things players like, which is the lore of the game and exploring. And so that is the thing that we focused our energy on instead of a class. This year it's going to be companions, and focusing in on companions and how to make the lives of our more solo-oriented players a little bit easier, but also to give players another avenue to roleplay their characters.
You kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of specifically MMO developers over the years, and they always say, like, if we're going to add a new class, it has to be different enough to warrant us to add it. If it's just a guy who attacks slightly different than a warrior, then, like, it's not really worth designing a whole class system with talents and balances and abilities.
Yeah.
If it's so similar. So you have to have a really good reason to add a new class, and it has to work within the world and the lore as well.
Yep.
So obviously, Blackwood is, like, it's a really cool environment. Can you talk about, like, how you guys go about? I just love the aesthetic of each DLC has a unique theme, right? Whether it's Gothic architecture or, like, the hellish dimension of Oblivion. Like, talk about, like, when you guys are designing that, the fun you get to have in the design phase.
It all kind of starts at the very beginning. One of the things that Matt and I always do is a little bit of kind of word association. So we try to come up and distill the feeling of the entire year down into like one or two words that really help set the mood and the tone for the rest of the team. And so You know, like you mentioned, Greymoor last year, and the that storyline, the one word was Gothic. Like that one was really easy once we kind of started laying out all the pieces of it. It was Gothic, and then that was the thing that the team just kind of rallied around, and they did a fantastic job with that. Elsewhere was revenge, and so that whole storyline, that whole feel was that kind of story element. This year, you know, it was essentially two. It was the devil and then deceit. That kind of really helps kind of tie all of those feelings together, and I think that's really important. To have those one or two words that help set the tone, so that all of the things that people are building, they can refer back to that. And does this fit this tone? Does this fit the tone? Does it fit kind of the overall feel of the year? Because if you don't do that, then you kind of get bits and pieces of things, and some of the elements don't necessarily match or fit in with the world.
So let's talk about like the Daedric Prince is obviously a big part of the Oblivion plane. A lot of them are evil and like, a little murder happy, but there's some that are like kind of like neutral almost. Like I remember playing some games and not all of them just wanted to kill everything. Some of them were maybe tricky about it, but talk about how you're going to be treating the Daedric beings in this, and if we're going to see a lot of the Daedric gods and stuff that we've known in the Elder Scrolls universe.
Well, Mehrunes Dagon is the center point for this year. It's the Gates of Oblivion, the Deadlands. We're going to go there. We're going to explore his realm in a lot more detail, and he plays a heavy role. He can't directly meddle in the mortal realm of Tamriel, and so he needs people to help with that, and that's kind of where the cultists come into play. But you're going to learn a lot more about his motivations, kind of what he's all about. And this time around he is kind of an evil jerk. He wants to claim what's rightfully, or at least what he thinks is rightfully his in Tamriel. He thinks Tamriel is just an extension of Oblivion and therefore his. So the story that we're telling this year is focused on that, and it's up to the players to put a stop to it.
Obviously, any Easter eggs obviously it's 800 years before Oblivion, that the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. Any Easter eggs we can look out for that maybe we see an event happen in Gates of Oblivion or in Blackwood that throws back to, that's why 800 years later this is there, or this happened, without giving anything away.
I'm grinning on how I want to answer this, because there's two ways. I can just tell you outright, or I think what I'm going to do is I think the tagline Gates of Oblivion is a really good kind of summation of the story and some of the possibilities that players will see.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. For a while I've been noticing with your game especially, accessibility has become a huge thing for you, wanting more people to come in, more people to not be, MMOs can be intimidating at a glance, like I don't know what's going on, there's a lot of things on the ground, there's a lot of buttons, I don't know what I'm doing, but you've really kind of stepped back and tried to improve that overall process. How has that been going for you on the creative side, trying to make this game more accessible to more players without getting that overwhelming feeling?
It's a challenge for sure. I think that the biggest challenge is there's people in my world, I don't want to be with other people. And then the next big challenge is just the sheer amount of choice and options that players have can definitely lead to almost paralysis of, I don't know what to do, therefore I'm just going to close it down. There's too much for me to look at. And so we've definitely over the years tried to spend time making it easier for players to understand how to build characters, how combat works, things like that. I think there's a lot more stuff that we can do to improve on that. But we've definitely gotten a lot better from kind of where we started. I think the Level Up Advisor is a really good example of that. I think the Zone Guide is another really good example of that, where it kind of goes against the essence of Elder Scrolls, which is go anywhere, do anything, do it in any order you want. And the Zone Guide is kind of like, if you want to complete the zone, here's the activities you need to do, and we'll point you to the next activity. And so we kind of have to straddle that line sometimes as well, is what's Elder Scrolls and what is accessible, and how do we make it more accessible?
Then going a little deeper into that, talk about your companion system, because as of someone who's played MMOs for the last 15 years, it can be fun but also frustrating when I'm following a story quest and I'm following, and then all of a sudden I hit a dead end because I have to find 5 players to do something, and all of a sudden I have to look for players. But this sounds like it's a subtle way to try to help with that problem.
It certainly is. I think, we have the extra added bonus of all of our critical path story stuff you can do solo. So you're never going to kind of run into that. But the hope with companions is, if you struggle with defeating a story quest boss, you have somebody that's always there at your beck and call to help you with extra healing or damage or tanking. The other hope with this is it kind of helps nudge some players into more of the social aspects and more of the multiplayer style of gameplay, because they can go in with their companion and maybe a close trusted friend, and the two of them could go do a 4-player dungeon, or they could go and whack on a world boss or a dragon or whatnot that they would never ever in a million years remotely even go to try because it required people. And now they have access to that stuff.
Games, obviously, community is a huge thing for your game. You guys have a wonderful community. How do you go about getting that feedback from your community and separating because you guys have data nobody else has. You can look at things and analyze and draw simulations of people who maybe just at a glance knee-jerk and say something's broken or too hard or too easy. How do you separate the constructive criticism from the noise?
That is an art, and really the way you do that is you take multiple sources. So like you said, we have hard data where we know how many people have gone up against this particular boss, how many people have died, how long it takes them to kill them. We have that hard data, but that's just one side of the equation. The other side is, what is the sentiment towards that thing, or that system or whatnot. And the way a lot of times you collect that is from multiple sources. We play it ourselves, so we get a feel for things. We troll the forums, we troll Reddit, all kinds of different social media. We look at the feedback and /bugs that get submitted in game, and then we kind of put all that together, and that's what informs us of kind of what we want to do and what we want to change, rather than just relying on specific hard data or just our own data or our own unique experiences. We try to get that cross section, because the way we see something is generally different than a brand new player would see something, or even a veteran player would see something. And so we try to get all of those things together.
Yeah, it's got to be difficult because you have there's different types of player bases, right? You have your PvPers, you have your raiders, you have your soloers,
Yep.
You have your lore junkies, and all of them have their 2 cents about what needs to make the game better, and a lot of them are probably conflicting. So.
They certainly do. My wife had early on when I kind of took over the role, and I was kind of struggling, well, I wasn't necessarily struggling, but struggling with there's just so much stuff. How do I make everybody happy? And my wife actually, made a comment to me where, we have a family of 4, and when we cook dinner at night, we can't always cook a dinner that all 4 of us are happy with. So how are you supposed to make, millions of people happy all the time? And that really kind of helps set the framework for really the last 6 years for me was, put your best foot forward, do what you think is the best, and there are going to be times where not everybody agrees and not everybody is happy with the things that you all are doing, but it's for the best interest of what you're working on, and that's helped a ton.
And I think that's games as a service lends itself so well to that, because if you do understep or overstep, it's fixable. You know what I mean? It's not just like disk is printed, that's it.
Right.
You know
Yep.
what I mean?
Yep. And I mean, we're the perfect example of that. Where we are today is very different than where we were, launch 2014.
So, and I have 2 more questions, and I know I've asked you this before, but I have to ask them anyway, because I have to, because community will be like, why didn't you ask these questions? So the first question is, PS5 and Xbox Series X's are out in the wild now. Well, kind of out in the wild, sort of, not really, but can you talk about any plans to increase a performance package for the PS5 or Xbox Series X players?
So we are working on a next gen optimized client. The team is working very hard on it right now. We're not quite ready to announce anything on that, but the game does run exceptionally well in compatibility mode on both those, on all three of those consoles. So, don't worry about, the next gen client right now. It'll come, it'll happen. And we've already said that it'll be a free upgrade. So jump in and start playing ESO on the next gen consoles. It's amazing the difference between current gen and next gen.
I mean, just the fact that you're working on it is great. I mean, because it takes stuff. Game dev takes time, people. Like, it doesn't just.
It does.
There's resource allocation, there's budgets, there's timing, and you guys have the heart. You guys have to do 4 a year, which is, that in itself is a challenge, as we talked about earlier. Speaking of this, I mean, I mentioned it again, I think, when we talked about Greymoor, but has the stay-at-home orders affected the deliveries on any of these DLCs or affected the workflow, or did you guys kind of get into it rather easily?
It definitely hit us with Greymoor. I think we missed our dates by a week, which is actually pretty remarkable when you think about it. But we've kind of hit our groove at this point now, and we haven't missed a date since then. We've had some quality problems, but we're working on those. And I think the thing, and I've said this a few times, and I can't remember who I've said it to, but it's, to me, the most amazing thing about working from home is you don't necessarily realize how many game development problems get solved in these one-off ad hoc kind of water cooler lunchroom chats that happen when you're all in the same area at the same time. And like a really good example of that is, I'll be walking through the halls and I'll walk by somebody's desk and I'll see something that doesn't quite look right, or I'm not quite sure what it is. Right then and there I go and I walk it and I talk to that person and I'm like, hey, what's going on? What's this? And we solve that problem there and then, and it's done, and it doesn't manifest into something much, much bigger and very difficult to correct later on. And that's really hard to do working from home. And we've definitely improved on that every time we do a new update. And I'm looking forward to getting even better at it as time goes forward. And hopefully we won't have to do this that much longer and we'll be able to go back to the office.
So what are you most excited about for players to experience with Flames of Ambition and Blackwood that you can talk about?
That I can I think the big thing for me is getting companions out in the wild. Play testing it feels great to me. I really like all the things that we've got in place right now. I love kind of having that control over the companion and kind of what they do and how they work, and they make a big impact on your life in the game, which is really, really cool. From the kind of story side of things, I think players are gonna have a really interesting time learning the new dungeons. Finn and the dungeon team, I think, have really kind of taken it to the next level, and so I'm really excited to see what people are going to think playing through those dungeons.
Awesome. And the very last question I have for you is, because I have to ask it. I know the answer. I know the answer you're going to give me.
Pretty sure I know what this is, but okay.
So cross save and cross play integration.
Okay. That's not the question I thought you were going to ask.
Oh, okay. What were you going to think I was going to ask you?
A test 6 question. But
so let's talk about that a little bit. You guys, I mean obviously you guys are your ears to the ground to it. I know that. I know there's its own set of challenges with so many platforms, especially for it being an MMO on PC and console. But talk about that for a minute. Crossplay or even cross save integration across your platforms.
So it is a big, hairy, complicated thing. Especially with a game like we have right now. A lot of the decisions we made back in 2007 when we started building the game are core to kind of the technology we have right now, don't necessarily play nice with that kind of the new paradigm of cross save. And then we also have multiple unique environments in terms of PC NA, PC EU, the Xbox, PlayStation, all those servers. They all have their own unique communities. They all have their own unique economies, and so suddenly just kind of putting those all in one area or allowing people to jump around causes a host of problems, just doing that. And then on top of all of that, all of the different first-party platforms have their own unique friend systems and social systems and things like that. And so being able to plug and play is a very difficult problem to solve, which is, why we haven't gone down that route. And I don't know that we'll ever go down that route.
I mean, it's not as... I mean, it's basically because you guys started so long ago before crossplay. Crossplay wasn't even a conversation in 2007. Like it was like what?
Wasn't.
Multiple platforms, get out of here.
It's relatively new, and I'm not saying it's impossible to do. Anything is possible, but it's a, like I said, it's a big, hairy, complicated technical problem to solve, and we have other technical problems that are much more important to us right now that we need to solve.
Yeah, I would rather you focus on the game itself, the game design, the expansions, adding new content, than just trying to spend the next year or two figuring out crossplay.
Yeah.